You're welcome back. Now, joining me tonight on Corero is Omoyele Sowore. It's a delight to have you join us on Corero.
Thank you very much for having me. Good evening.
Well, first, when you were coming, a lot of people say a very big masquerade is coming into the studio. Of course, you'll be helping us put all of this issue in perspective. Once again, it's a delight again to have you, and we'll say a happy Ramadan to you and to all our viewers out there.
Thank you. Happy Ramadan, end of Ramadan
End
to
of Ramadan.
all the
Yeah.
viewers out there. We wish you the best of the season.
All right, so let's even dive into the conversation.
Yeah.
A lot of issues are begging for answers. But first, generally, how will you even assess the current state of Nigeria's democratic institutions ahead of the 2027 elections? Are they strong? Are they weak? Or are they completely compromised?
Well, your answer is as good as mine. They're all completely weak. And when institutions are weak, they are very easy to compromise because they are vulnerable. And it is because our democratic institutions did not carry the weight of a constitutional change. When we had democracy in 1999, we did not have a constitution that was made by the people. See, that was the difference between the transition in South Africa and the transition in Nigeria. One of the things that happened, I'm talking about the apartheid transition in 1994, that is from an apartheid era to, okay, I use South Africa a lot because we partook also in that struggle somehow, is that when the South Africans were transiting from apartheid regime to majority rule in South Africa, the first thing they went for was a constitution made by the people, black and white, that would carry the weight of their democratic institutions. It covered everything, including things that weren't even anticipated at the beginning. And then they moved on to have what was known as transitional justice, where they told everybody who was involved in the crisis of apartheid, human rights abuses, corruption, to come before a Truth and Reconciliation Committee. And people who were not willing to come were dealt with. Nigeria had also a Truth and Reconciliation Committee, by the way, but it was the worst. It was a soap opera. It carried no weight. So some of the people who carried out the most egregious human rights abuses refused to come. They were above the law. People like Babangida, I think Abubakar. Obasanjo only went there because he was head of state at that time. He wanted to legitimize that. So these are what make institutions strong when you start a democratic journey. But in the case of Nigeria, we didn't do any of that. We didn't reform our military. We didn't reform our police. We carried on as if everything was all right up until then. And the same people who had sabotaged democracy for as many years as before 1999 came and became the people who merely changed their dress, didn't change their character, and they hijacked the democratic process, and because they knew how to compromise institutions already. And of course, one of the first institutions that are strongest in democratic system is the judiciary and also the electoral umpire. The moment those two are gone, the judiciary guarantees justice for everyone. The electoral umpire, of course, deliver votes, free and fair elections that actually becomes what represents what the people want. But like I said, we didn't have a constitution that was legit in 1999. It was the military that just passed on a piece of paper. Some of them even copied from other countries and said, "This is your constitution." We shamelessly wrote on it that we, the people. Nobody was there when the constitution was made. So I'm giving you this background so you can understand where the failure of the institutions came from. Institutions by themselves don't operate. It's people that make institutions strong. It's popular will, but it's also constitutional power.
All right.
Yes.
So, if I get you correctly, you
Yeah.
said right now that the judiciary has been compromised and it does not reflect justice.
Yes, absolutely. I'm one person who frequents our courts a lot, and I could write a whole book about what I saw in the judiciary in the last 6 or 7 years that I've been in Nigeria. Because I was in Nigeria from 1999 till about 2016. I wasn't in Nigeria, even though I'd had interfaces with the judiciary. It wasn't as bad as it. In fact, the judiciary I left behind in 1999 respected the rule of law more than the judiciary that is there now under democratic rule. So, and I have been at the receiving end of terrible judicial decisions. I was the person whose lawyer was asked to kneel down before a judge.
We will come. We will
No,
come to. We will come to
I'm
that
just telling
point
you
where.
how bad it is.
Yeah.
Because these are personal experiences, but I know you get there, yes.
Also, because we thought at first that it was just a speculation and just make
No,
the
it's not a
rounds.
speculation. I
That
think somebody from Rapid
yeah.
TV was there in court.
My colleague was there,
Yeah,
Governor Amunde.
and he must have told you what if we captured it on tape, it would be unbelievable. But for some reason, we couldn't because they don't allow tapes to roll within these courts when you're having judicial proceedings. But I'm just giving you some of my personal. I was abducted before in front of a judge, a female judge, in 2019 by the DSS inside the courtroom. And the wig of the judge flew in the air. She ran without her shoes. So this is how they weaken the institutions. But those who are operators in the institutions are themselves complicit. But where did they come from? That's the question. It's the same process that produced them. You look at the judiciary today, most of the judges in Nigeria are children of former judges, spouses of judges. So it has become a family affair. So if I want to get justice, or just us as we speak, you want to buy a judge, you know where to go to in Abuja. There are places where you can go to. There are ministers you can go to who have complete control over how judges deliver justice. And it's exactly what you buy that you get, depending on how much you're willing to pay. That's the truth. And nobody can deny this. It's public knowledge for everybody.
That there's a place in Abuja where you can get justice.
Absolutely.
You can actually buy justice.
Absolutely.
All right. So
I just don't want to. I don't know how much of a latitude you have. I'll mention names. There are former Supreme Court justices. There's a minister in this town, the FCT minister, who has even boasted about it. That he can get any judge to do whatever he wants. There's a woman who used to be in the Supreme Court, Bukashowa, who her husband confessed in court. You remember that they come to get justice. There was a confession recently, I think it was by Kwakwanso, that they met Supreme Court justice on behalf of the governor of Kwano State to buy justice, just so that they will give favorable judgment. These are people who don't even hide it anymore.
Now, speaking of institutions, let's even look at the legislature.
Yes.
Of course, a lot of people have called them a lot of names, but then there's still a lawmaking body, even in the country. But from your own assessment, is the National Assembly doing enough to strengthen electoral laws and democratic institutions?
They just passed some of the worst electoral laws that have aided and abetted the electoral heist in this country. They just did one recently where they said a law that has been passed, the process that has been consolidated in the past, should be reversed so that there's complete lack of transparency within the democratic process, which is that you cannot transmit election results instantaneously as they're happening. And they knew what they were doing when they were doing that, because they know that if people get election results as they're happening, which is not even my favorite proposal, that it will take away a lot of darkness from how they compile, release, and vet these election results. But they have taken that right away from you. They're now saying that, well, it is no longer mandatory to transmit election results from polling units to the IREP server, where people can view them immediately as they're happening. And they have tested it already in the last local government election in the FCT. We didn't start getting election results until about 9 p.m. on IREF. But in 2023, we're getting election results as early as 4 p.m. before they claim that the server went down. Yes.
Interesting times. But then, looking at what has played out across the country,
yes,
can any meaningful institutional reform even happen right now within the current political framework?
It is impossible. It is not possible because the people who are in charge of these reforms, I think we misapply the word reforms, are the people who are going to benefit from lack of reforms of these institutions. So if someone is in a bank, robbing a bank, and you give him the rights or the opportunity or the duty to reform the banking system, what do you think he would do? Is he going to reform it in such a way that he will not be able to be robbing the bank? No. If someone were to be in charge of the police force and is involved in armed robbery, or he sells guns to armed robbers, and you ask him to reform the police, would he not reform it in his own interest? That's what is logical about human conduct. But we always behave as if we are ostriches in this country, that we don't understand that the interest that is permanent and prevalent in the political so-called reform process is the interest of the elites who benefit from the rot, the decay, and the vulnerability of the institutions. We don't seem to understand that, and that is one truth that's staring us in the face that we refuse to accept. That nobody who is benefiting from electoral fraud will ever allow you to have electoral reforms. So what are you left with? Is to force yourselves into a very important position, probably difficult, dangerous, that the only way to do that is to revolt. And that's why we preach for a revolution to happen in this country, because it is that seismic, volcanic eruption of uncontrollable one that delivers consequences to those who have done this, that can bring about the electoral reform you're talking about, or any form of reform. It cannot happen with those who are benefiting from the rot to reform it. So what you're left with is a revolutionary action. And without that, we're deceiving ourselves. So everybody who is in this country today, who is a citizen of this country, who is truthful to himself, understands already that there is an election result that was almost delivered to us. It's just waiting for the day to read these results to you. And you know the outcome already. You know the outcome of, the people who will not even participate in election, who you can almost predict would win the election that they didn't participate in. We've had it so many times. I don't know what they need to do to us for us to wake up and say, look, this is just too transparent insults on the sensibility of the people of Nigeria, who are very happy to say we are 200 million people, who can't do anything about 10,000 people who are jacking us around.
Interested. For many people,
Yes.
they will say the name Sowore from 2018, where the AAC was formed,
Yes.
till date has been synonymous with the whole disruption of government. Government in out have been able to feel the rot of the name called Sowore. But I'm curious at this point, do you set out to actually disrupt the government, or when you call for take it back and the revolution now, what is the brain behind all of this?
No, it is very simple. I didn't start in 2018.
You're talking about the AAC.
Yes, the AAC started in 2018, but I did not start in it, and most of the guys in AAC did not start in 2018. Some of us started as far back, way back, as far back as 1993 for a lot of people. But I started out as a university student in 1989, and I've always never supported or allowed a minute of injustice to pass without challenge. That's always been my nature. Even as a child, I've always never allowed injustice to pass without challenge. So, but since 2018, when the AAC was established, the party decided publicly that we are a revolutionary party, and that we are leftists, and that we're socialists, and that we will return our country back to the original owners of the country, the people. So, and that is what we set out to do. If you call it disruption, you may be right, because what is disruption? You have a system that is making your life miserable. You do not allow that to continue without challenge. You challenge the system so bad, the system gets destabilized because it's making life miserable for a lot of people. and they started giving all kinds of definition. And you know, if you want to use disruption even from a tech point of view, you know, you talk about what we are doing today, right? Some 10 years ago, you can't broadcast on you can't broadcast TV without a license, right? I don't know if you already on DSTV or
Your Star Times, your Night Concert.
Your Star Times,
Star
yes.
Times and Night Concert.
But even Star Times is a disruptive technology. You get my point? Because some guys in China decided that, look, we want to put people on cable because we have satellites in the orbit, and we're going to make it cheaper for what Americans would do or what the British would do. And they provided a disruptive opportunity for technology of this nature to reach millions of people. The phone calls you're making on WhatsApp used to be charged by minutes, and it was expensive to make a call. When there was a cell phone in this country for the first time, it was, you know, it used to carry what they call North Night North area code. You know, it took one person to carry it and another person to give it, you know, to the person who's going to make a call on it. It was a satellite phone. But today, what do you have? Disruptive technology has reduced all of that to nothing. It's, you know, so today you just carry this device. It can do anything that you want for you. It's in one device. The banking system has been disrupted. In a few years, some of these big banks you are hearing their names in Nigeria will no longer exist because of OPay and Kuda and all these smaller banks. You can't believe that OPay is a microfinance bank. If somebody told you 10 years ago that a microfinance bank is a serious bank, you will laugh at the person. It's like, you know, because you are used to the big 5 banks or big 10 banks, you know, and you used to have ATMs, and it was the biggest. People queued up in front of ATMs. Now you don't have to leave your house. People used to carry buckets of water to count money. Now you don't count money anymore. You just transact business, you know, electronically. Those are disruption. I'm defining the technological definition of it. Well, the political side, there's also how technology helps in that regard. You know, like you and I can reach each other now, thousands of people at the same time, just by sending a WhatsApp message and say, let's meet somewhere. We can use Twitter to disrupt government activities by revealing what government is planning to do. In fact, as of today, I tell people, everybody's a journalist, you know, because you can create your own headline, your storyline on Facebook. Facebook has an editor that does that for you. And the editor of Facebook is the guy who helps you edit your grammar, adjective, verbs, puts everything together in such a way that it believes it's proper. In fact, the editor on your Facebook page is also almost your legal advisor to write a story, because it takes away languages that they feel could attract libel, or, you know, stories that are essentially applies to what AI is doing today. So I'm just expressing to you how there's an interface, an interchange between political disruption and even technological disruption. But as for me, yes, I have always believed that for us to get to that level of peace, progress, and prosperity for Nigeria, by extension Africa and humanity, the old system must be disrupted. And that's what I've always done. That's what our political party and movement, you know, has Take It Back, has done since Take It Back preceded, you know, AAC. And it's a movement that is not only national but international.
Interesting. So far, so good.
Including Sahara Reporters.
Yeah, Sahara Reporters.
It was a disruptive, you know, media company that came to disrupt the way reporting is done. This instantaneous news you get on Twitter, you get on Facebook, it's just, you know, disruption of what is used to be. Used to be that newspapers waited the next day.
But for many people, they will say that the current administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has performed beyond even reasonable doubt in terms of deliverables when it has to do with governance. But then we've seen
you just say performed?
Let's say it's from the tentative. Everybody say that.
I understand. Maybe you're trying to be provocative.
Not provocative.
But you have protested.
You've seen
the
end bad governance was for a lot of persons.
What did they do?
That's what I'm saying. For a lot of persons, they will say that the government has performed.
No, not a lot of persons.
For a lot of persons, a lot of Nigerians still believe that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government has performed.
We're in a TV station, not a shrine.
Yeah.
So tell me how he has performed. What has he done? Tell me what he has done in the economic sector that has brought jobs, succor, or increase in wages, salaries, allowances for workers. Tell me what he has done to give
So
you
you're saying that
water
President Bola Ahmed
to
Tinubu has
drink.
not done
Tell me what.
anything
Tell
for
me
his
what has done.
2.5 years in office?
What has he done? Tell me. We can have it. We're having a debate and a conversation now. So educate me so that maybe
I'm not holding brief for the president.
I
We've
know
seen
you're
you. We've
not.
seen
That's why
you.
I said we should
Yeah.
have. We're having exchange of ideas.
Yes.
You can point one thing to me that in the area of security, how did he perform such that Nigeria is more secure than he met it? When soldiers, about 127 soldiers were killed in just one uh, place, a military base, or 120 people were killed in Maiduguri last week. And what are you going to tell me in terms of electricity? Has it improved in your area? Are people having jobs? Has inflation dropped? Has the value of the naira returned to what it met it as? So where's the performance, or where do you get the index to judge the performance that I can't find? Just educate me.
Well, I guess the presidential spokesperson will definitely want to educate us on this, of course. So I won't I won't be biased to say that I'm holding brief for the president. But then, for a lot of Nigerians, they will say that so far so good. The inflation has dropped.
To what?
Well, go by the percentage. Where he
What
took
was the
it from
percentage he met it?
17 points. Right now we're battling with 15.5.
Wow.
So it has dropped at least by 2. I'm not holding brief for the president.
So,
But then
So what-
economically, the metrics for food right now, we've said post-harvest losses has reduced, and a lot of people are getting access to more food right now
Where?
compared to how much you're buying a bag of rice before President Bola Ahmed took over as president.
no.
So you are not seeing
Do
anything
you guys
positive
go to a
in
different market than I know? Because for me, food prices have risen, everywhere across board. If I don't go to farm to buy things, at least I buy processed food. I go to supermarkets, I go to bucaterias, restaurants to eat, and I know that it's more expensive now to buy a bag, a bowl of, eba and soup, Gary, than it used to be. It's more expensive to buy rice now than it used to be. So I don't know whether you want us to continue the trajectory of the Buhari regime in those days when they were going to pack some bags of sandust, put rice on top, and say that this is the rice pyramid. Are we still back there? And when you're talking about rice, where are we growing them? You can crash the prices of rice by smuggling rice into Nigeria, right? You can. You can just open your borders, and that could reduce it, because that's what Buhari did differently. He locked the borders, and that, of course, increased the supply for rice was decreased, and the demand rose, and price got higher. So maybe Tinubu, I'm not even aware of that. I'm just giving scenarios that could have happened, because I don't know where you guys buy rice that's cheaper. Maybe you can point me to somewhere. It's like we can announce it to people. Go and get your rice cheaper at so market. But I don't think it's true, and I know that it's not true that any of these economic indices show that Nigeria is making progress. If we are, you can't hide it. Just like I was telling you earlier, the way data is exchanged these days has disrupted the way data has exchanged before. You can be the statistician of the country and start making up numbers, but people will fact check you immediately. You can't lie to people that the price of rice is less. They will ask you on Twitter and Facebook or Instagram. They'll go to the market immediately. If you're saying the price of goods and services have decreased, what about the price of oil? Petroleum products. What about kerosene? What about gas that people cook with? So it has to be a total package for you to discuss economic indices. So it's just like in those days when Nigeria woke up one day and said they have the largest economy in the world, in Africa. You get my point. They made up the numbers. They just went and started put together some numbers. And we challenged them in those days, but some people wouldn't accept it because they like being lied to. Now, how can you say that your economy is bigger than that of South Africa? The two, just one in this defeats the whole lie. The number of wattage of electricity available in South Africa is 62,000 megawatts of electricity. Your entire 200 people are sharing 5,000 megawatts. How is your economy going to be bigger when every industrial revolution lies in the ability of power and energy? You get my point? So the cost of transporting goods from anywhere to it is passed on to what sells in the market. So I'm just giving you all of this so that I don't want to dabble into the more complex economic conversations so that we don't start flying over those who are watching me and you. But ask the people, are you better than you were 2.5 years ago? And I'm sure the answer will be a total no. Absolute no.
All right, interesting. You've often talked about the whole idea of a revolution.
Yes.
And of course, a lot of Marxist scholars will agree with you because of the Communist Manifesto, where they tried to talk about an egalitarian society and all of that, the socialist movement, and what have you. But then, when we talk about the political disruption which you have been championing,
Yes.
as a people, are we ready for this disruption?
That's a question. That's a fantastic question. Yeah. But it's not as easy as you want it to be, right? You could say that the people are not ready for political disruption, but you don't know because you are not in the mind of the people. You see, political disruption comes from organizing, and when you organize adequately and properly into political units that want change, then there will be a driving force. And then circumstances will force people one day. You can wake up one day and in Nigeria you say that everybody is a coward, can surprise you. Because something might happen, right? It could, just like NSAS. NSAS started like a joke in Sapele or somewhere, you know. The guy whose video led to NSAS did not even die at the end of the day, you know, the guy. But the moment people heard that, oh, these SARS people have come again, there was a spark. And that was almost a revolution. And SARS was almost a revolution. But again, it requires just more than wishful thinking. It requires planning, it requires strategy, it requires tenacity, and it requires some level of stubbornness and willingness to sacrifice more than probably happened during that period. But these are the same Nigerians that did NSAS. The generation did NSAS in this country, so don't underrate anybody and don't underrate any situation, because the tools for political mobilization are, you know, are way more available now than they used to be. And the barrier to entry for political mobilization is also lower. Just like the barrier to entry into journalism, like I was saying earlier, or media work, has been reduced. You know, before you need to have massive cameras, you know, that are as big as this house just to make a broadcast. But now, everything you have here can also be done by a 6K capacity, you know, Redmi or iPhone or Samsung. You get the same quality. People are making movies with their cell phones now. But whoever thought that was possible? It's the same thing that I apply to political organizing and revolutionary possibilities.
Interesting. Now, let's permit me to even divert a bit and come to your person. There's one thing we've known you for, and that is the fact that as an activist, you always want to speak for want to defend the defenseless, want to be the voice for the voiceless, and you always do this with so much excitement. When we see you going out for cases, I'm wondering, this case, how does it concern Sowore? Why is he so particularly concerned about this whole case? But then we see you follow through on some cases. Sometimes you even use your own finances to run some of those expenses. But then there is this one particular case, which I'm trying to find out from you at this point, the possibility of Alba Kyari, since you've mentioned SARS, and you've mentioned let's even talk about the Alba Kyari's case. Of course, I know that you have been following up on a lot of this case, but then is there a possibility of him returning to the police force and perhaps returned back to his rank since the former IG, which you've said was an illegal IG, has left office? Is there possibility?
You see, one thing you must understand is that my struggle against the former IG has nothing to do with Abakari. It has to do with the fact that the process that produced him for me was illegal because he was elevated to become IG after he had retired officially. In fact, the Attorney General had announced that we are expecting a new IG. And then it's just like asking a former judge, a judge who's no longer in the service, to come and run a case at the Federal High Court. It might apply if it's a tribunal set up for a special purpose by the government, but in the conventional setting of the judge, it's a retirement age. And when they discovered that, or they decided that the retirement age was too short for judges, I think they increased it to 17 years before you retire. Nobody will query that. If Egbetokun, for instance, was sent to customs, nobody will query that because we know that you don't have to wear customs. But with the police, army, and I think Navy, some of these major military units or paramilitary units, the requirements in their act is that the person who is their leader should be in service. And that was it. So to come to Abakari, I am too knowledgeable about what Abakari did, as a police officer, how unethical he was, how he was involved even in a lot of extrajudicial activities, that I cannot even think anybody is wishing him go back to the police force. Are you getting my point? It's not a matter of sympathy or sentiment. But Nigeria, anything goes. Who knows what they're planning? Are you getting my point? I just read before I came here, the former Justice Minister and Attorney General, who has been in detention, was released today.
That's President Malami.
Yes, about SN, Malami SN. He was bragging that he has no regrets for doing all the evil he did. Even at the time, there's now ample evidence that he assisted terrorist financiers in the country to evade justice, collected money from them, and built mansions. But again, not everything goes. Maybe they've had conversations on the ground, struck a deal with him that nothing will happen to you. That is why for us, revolution is very important, because in that revolutionary process, it's also the idea of revolutionary justice. And revolutionary justice is not just meant for punishment, it's meant for deterrence for those in the future who might want to do things that works against the interests of the masses. So, but I'm just giving you those examples to understand that never say never when you talk about impunity in Nigeria. Anything can happen here. Because, of course, like you said, like we started this conversation, the institutions don't exist to rectify wrongs.
But allegedly, let's allege on it, because we can't say for sure that the institutions don't exist. Of course,
I made it very clear that institutions that can rectify wrongs, and institutions that exist, they just don't add any value to what could make the country work better for now and in the foreseeable future. Yes.
So, as it stands right now,
Yes.
a lot of young Nigerians that are watching us are curious. Is there light at the end of the tunnel for Nigeria?
If there's going to be light, we have to provide it ourselves. If we're expecting light at the end of the tunnel for Nigeria as it is, without ensuring that the light is the one we put in place to the end of the tunnel, it might be that of an oncoming train that will crush everybody who's just expecting light for the sake of light.
So come 2027, you've said that we don't have institutions that can even probably put mechanism in place that will correct abnormalities.
Yes.
And you've also said that, of course, we cannot trust a lot of the institutions because the leaders in those institutions are not genuine. But then 2027 is fast approaching, and I don't know yet if you're contesting for if you're coming out for presidency again.
So I want to answer it in a way that will broken down to everybody's level. My engagement in the politics of the country is for a purpose of total liberation. And that is why our campaign and manifesto and even utterances speak directly to this. And that's why we get into trouble with the system for saying we want liberation. So my engagement is to continue to use politics, which I believe in, democratic participation, to let people see what is best. So I present myself as an alternative, or we present ourselves as the total alternative that can help you win your liberation, if possible through the ballot or at the barricades. That is why when we're going to election, we tell you everything we are up to. We present our candidates. And when the election is over, we tell you everything that's wrong with it, and we present you with another option. In 2019, I did it. We did it. We participated in election when we saw it wasn't working. We introduced revolution now. They arrested me, detained me for 5 months in solitary confinement, brought me before a judge. I told the judge, right, I said, you're wasting your time. You can't prosecute this. And eventually, after 5 years, they went and withdrew their charges. But we continue. I never for one day, and I've said this publicly, deny that I want to see an overthrow of the old order that's put ourselves and our people into total misery. So my answer is that whatever it takes to keep that journey and that process rolling until we get to our destination, we will do. Elections, yes. Barricades, yes. So it will be a combination, because this question is what a lot of people ask me. It's like, well, if you don't believe in election, why do you participate in elections? And I said to them, see, the reason we fought for democracy is because we believe elections should be able to deliver for a majority of our people the outcome that they want. But we also don't lie to the people that the way the system is skewed against them, the process is rigged against them, and the outcome is predetermined with impunity by those operating it, that they must understand that they have to do way more than is required for them to get the outcome that they want. So we are helping the public to push the outcome that they want. So in a nutshell, if we win by ballot, you will see the revolution. We'll open up the country. We'll be transparent about governance. We'll give you every penny that is available to you will be invested in you. And that will make you look like, wow, I can't believe this is possible. But that if that is made impossible, that we will not wait for the next calendar year. We'll keep fighting and pushing for an outcome that is revolutionary in nature, to say to the people that you stole the mandate, you can't enjoy it until the people get back their mandate.
Hey, interesting. Now, you've also made a very statement that is a bit capturing. Said you're open to opportunities, but then African Action Congress, is it also open for opportunities? By opportunities, I mean, are we going to see, since it's an era of political party merging, is the AAC going to merge with any other political party in order to drive the whole idea behind liberation movement?
Well, let me correct you. Parties can't merge at this point anymore. Right.
Probably we can have a consensus candidate.
You can have a consensus candidate for people who are ideologically aligned with us. If we find a party in the horizon in Nigeria today that has the same agenda as the AAC, that believes in our educational agenda, our financial inclusion agenda, our security proposals, we would work with them. But we will not join coalitions for the sake of helping to create another set of monsters. Because don't forget that the political class in Nigeria, they have antecedents. there's no politician in Nigeria today who are in these major parties that have not shown themselves to be who they are or worse than they used to be.
But Peter Obi shares in your ideology in a way,
How?
in his own, in his own political philosophy. Of
How?
course,
How?
I've listened to you
No,
over
no,
and
no,
over
wait,
when you
wait,
call
no,
him
no.
a package fraud
Yes.
and all
How?
of that.
I'm asking you. You are a journalist.
Yes.
Just don't say. What do we have in common? Tell me.
Well, the same mandate.
No,
Mama
I don't-
Papa Pekin,
No.
which the Labour Party, when he was
That
in the
is
Labour
not
Party.
an agenda.
When he was
That
in
is
the Labour
not-
Party.
that is not an
When he was in
ideology.
the Labour Party.
Papa Pekin
when he was
is
in
a
the Labour
logo
Party. It was
of
a
the
logo
Labour-
of the Labour Party.
No,
When he
it's
was
a-
in the
it's a
Labour
Labour
Party,
of the party
one of the things that
he
Labour Party
rented.
stands for, he rented.
Yes.
Okay.
It's Labour he rent is the party. Listen, you guys pay attention to me, if you can. I was the one who used to describe the Labour Party as short renter. You know what short renter is called? The alias name for short renter is Airbnb. You know, this place can be made into to be a beautiful apartment. And I can pay you money to come and live here, put my picture on the wall, you know, have my children's picture on the wall, have everything set up. But our agreement is just for 3 months. So when the 3 months is over, I leave. I live with my things, but your chair, your TV, and every other thing that you equip the house with is left behind. So Mama and Papa and Pekin is the logo of that Airbnb known as Labour Party. And when the agreement expired, he has moved on. So is he still using Mama, Papa, and Pekin as a logo? He has moved on to another place, and that's probably his 5th or 6th political, maybe 5. APGA, PDP, so it will be 5 because it was in PDP, then APGA, then PDP, and then Labour Party, and now ADC. That's 5 different political parties. How do we all have anything in common? Mama, Papa, and Pekin is not political ideology. It's not manifesto. It is a party logo that he already abandoned. So what do we have in common?
But while he was in the Labour Party,
yeah,
you agree that some of the things that you were fighting for,
like
you're
what?
soliciting
I've just
for,
asked
of course,
I've
good
asked you-
governance.
Which good governance?
Good governance across the country.
He
We-
never
we've seen-
he never fought for good governance, even in
we
Labour
saw
Party.
we saw the obedient movement coming out to agitate and advocate
For what?
for good governance. The
How?
1 million
Where?
man watch in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, and
that
other
was
parts of the country.
that was political.
It-
that was political
but
campaign.
it was
couched
it was
as
more than a political
protest.
campaign. It
No,
was
wait.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Just let's stop deceiving people.
All right.
Yes, because it doesn't serve anybody's purpose. Like I said, the Labour Party existed before 2023. They were looking for political party, as Peter Obi, after they left the PDP, because the PDP wouldn't offer him a presidential platform to become president. So they moved to the Labour Party, paid the Labour Party guys to take over the party. They had a primary that lasted for 15 minutes. I think it was in Asaba or so. And he became the candidate. And they started packaging him as someone who believes in good governance. But if you believe in good governance, you must have practiced the good governance before, where you were a governor. If you have been governor for 8 years, you must be able to practicalize and demonstrate to people that I have done it before and I plan to do more. Nothing like that. So the rest is to just make people make believe. And the obedient movement you're talking about are people that I know very well. Some of them, after 2023, we had to do protests together. Some of them joined TIB in 2024 for end bad governance. But the movement itself was not about end bad governance. It was about a political agenda which was to push Obi into the office of president, and that anybody else was not accepted or acceptable to them. They even claim that the rest of the politicians in the country, except of course, they can tell us that, were structures of criminality. That's what they said. And asked anybody not to scrutinize their candidate, their programs, their manifestos. If you did, they said you don't love Nigeria. After the election, it was the same thing. Bullied everybody. Of course, except me. You can't bully me. And at the end, the people they call the structure of criminality, they went back to them, and they're now all in the ADC, another renter. And he has told you, as of today or yesterday, that he may not get the presidential slots of the ADC. He's preparing the mind of his followers who are still being fooled for maybe a vice presidency or something else in the ADC, because technically the ADC belongs to Atiku. The only position that is still open is not the presidential candidacy of ADC, it's the vice presidential candidacy. And it's likely between Obi and Amici.
Well, interesting.
Yes.
Before I let you go, because I've been saying that our time is
Of
fast
course.
spent, just before I let you go, your final take. Looking at 2027, do you think that there will be election in Nigeria?
There will be a selection. Election, no. Because we must properly define what an election is. An election is a process that is transparent, that should be credible, fair, just. And an election doesn't start and end with voting alone. It starts with campaigning. It starts with, equal opportunity for candidates, political parties. You cannot say that you're having an election in a country that's going to be free and fair. If a state known as Enugu says you must produce 50 million naira before you can put a banner up in the state, you've already excluded people. You can't have elections when already the voters in a country has already been purchased and pocketed by one political party who is using the national resources to bribe and pay people, and they determine who is going to run the elections. They populated the Electoral Commission with their own people, party card-carrying members. Then nobody has thought about it that Tinubu fixed 11 Supreme Court justices since he came in the Supreme Court, and takes 7 judges to determine the outcome of the election.
So there will be selection, not election.
It is selection, yeah.
Well,
but we can, if we are serious, make this an election. We can elect never to be deceived again.
all right.
Yes. And manipulated.
Well, a lot of things to discuss, even on this table, but I've been signaled again that it's time for us to go. I want to say thank you so much, Mr. Omoyele Sowore, for finding out time to be with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, viewers, this is how far we can go tonight. Do not forget that you can leave your thoughts, you can leave your comment on our various social media handle currently showing on your screen. And you can also download the Rapid TV app from your Android and iOS devices to keep track of our broadcast. My name is Godwin Sunday. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Do enjoy the rest of your night rest. Bye for now.